Hi. Today, or this week, is the 67th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations. And boy, it has changed. That's what we'll talk about today. It's gone from essentially a service organization that was set up by the nations of the world to promote negotiation, avoid war, and promote peaceful conflict resolution. And it has metastasized into a putative would-be global government. The dominant threat we face to the freedom and independence of the United States of America is obviously no longer communism or fascism, and it isn't Islamism either. Our energy independence is very soon going to bankrupt the jihadist world because they're dependent entirely on oil. The threat we face is from the United Nations. Now, I'm not literally suggesting that black helicopters are going to land on the Rose Garden and blue-helmeted UN troops are going to do a coup d'etat. But figuratively speaking, that's a metaphor for what's going on at this point. Just 2 weeks ago, or last week, the United Nations announced, get this, they are going to send monitors to observe elections in the United States to determine that our elections are fair and free. And it was in response to a complaint not from the American government, not from the state governments that run the elections, but from American civil rights groups that requested the UN monitors. Governor Perry of Texas, the governors run elections, said that they will be barred from Texas because it's illegal under Texas law for foreigners to participate in an American election. And other governors should follow suit. We have a petition on our website to your local governor calling on him to bar the UN inspectors. But the chutzpah of that, we're by far the oldest and the only seriously democratic country in the world except for Britain. And we're being told that our elections need to be monitored by people from countries that have been democracies for about 40 years and were previously under dictatorships or ex-communist countries or countries in Central Asia that are still dictatorships. I mean, this is just absolutely reprehensible. But it's symptomatic of what the UN is trying to do. I believe Romney's going to win this election, and I believe the Republicans are going to take the Senate and keep the House. But we could lose the lame duck session. And the lame duck session could be an unprecedented disaster for the American people. That's what we write about in Here Come the Black Helicopters, which, by the way, is on the bestseller list now. And the danger is extensive. First of all, they want to tax our offshore oil rigs and send the money directly to the third world. They want a global tax on cigarettes. They want a Robin Hood tax to be imposed. So every time you sell a stock or buy it or a bond or change currency, you'd have to pay a percentage tax in addition to capital gains as a fee, which would go to the third world. That's why they call it a Robin Hood tax. In cooperation with the United Nations, the European Union wants to impose a tax on all U.S. aircraft that flies into Europe. That's in addition to the administration of the airport that both countries do. This would be a tax of the equivalent of $120 round trip per passenger to punish the United States for failing to reduce our carbon emissions. Incredible. And then they're talking about a billionaire's tax, an income tax by the United Nations imposed on the 1,600 billionaires on Earth, 400 of them in the United States. And it's easy to see bracket creep going downward and affecting all of us. There's a treaty on the internet that we've talked about and nobody is mentioning. This treaty, which is going to be signed in December in Dubai, gives the United Nations control over the internet and permits countries to censor the websites that originate within their borders and to charge an extra fee for those that are outside of their borders that can be prohibitive and stop people from accessing it. Absolutely outrageous. And then there's the Small Arms Treaty. We talked about that a lot in June and July. It was scheduled to be signed on July 27th. Hillary went to New York to sign it, but the negotiations stopped because 51 U.S. senators, prodded by 700,000 emails that you sent through our website, announced that they would vote against ratification. So Obama and Hillary pulled back and didn't sign the treaty. But 2 weeks ago, the United Nations made clear that it was going to pass that treaty at a session of the General Assembly in November. Now, once they pass the treaty, it's set in stone. It's no longer negotiable. and then it goes out to the members for ratification. And the minute 60 members ratify it, which will happen in a couple of weeks, it takes effect and is binding on all signatory nations. And then you watch. Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton are going to sign that treaty, and it's going to take effect. Will the Senate ratify it? No. But Harry Reid will never bring it up for a vote, because he knows that until the Senate votes it down or a subsequent president renounces it under the Vienna Convention, it takes effect, and international gun controls will begin to be applied in the United States of America. This is all global governance. It's all the idea of overriding sovereignty and nationalities. Now, if the United Nations were a body of democracies and freedom-loving countries and honest countries, that would be one thing, but it's not. Freedom House rates that a majority, almost two-thirds, of the members of the United Nations are not free. And rating them on a scale of 1 to 10 on their corruption, Transparency International gives two-thirds of the world body a 1 through 3 rating, with 10 being the most honest, and only about 1/3 of them being seen as, on balance, relatively free of corruption. It also is dominated by tiny 2-bit countries. 96 votes, enough to be majority of the General Assembly, are cast by countries that have populations of less than 5 million, less than New York City. Monaco has 10,000 people, and it has the same one vote as the United States. The one-man, one-vote theory that we have in the United States is nowhere to be seen in the United Nations. And those 96 countries that constitute a majority of the UN have a combined population of 245 million, and US is 310, and they can outvote us 96 times over. Now, in the old days, when the UN was a forum for negotiation, it made perfect sense to have countries that were dictatorships represented there, or corrupt governments represented there, because dictators and corrupt governments can go to war too, and that you needed a negotiation with everybody there, and you took them as they came, and you didn't ask questions, you let them sit there and negotiate. The only thing you want to know is, were they in control of their countries, and would the peace they make be a one that they could commit to? Now, when they're posturing this as a global government, and the General Assembly is going to take the place of the United States Congress, we don't want to be governed by autocrats. Who does the Russian delegate represent? One man, Vladimir Putin. Who does the Chinese delegate represent? 8 or 10 guys on the Politburo. It's ridiculous to say that a democratically elected government by 310 million Americans should have one vote, and these guys who represent nothing except their own dictatorship should have one vote. So this global governance of the United Nations is something we got to get onto. We got to pay attention to. Otherwise, it'll swallow us up, piece by piece by piece. And Barack Obama, in his bitterness after he loses the election, with his Democratic Senate hand in hand, House has no role over treaties, could have us hogtied by January 1st when Romney and the Republicans come in. Thanks for watching.